This is episode 5 of the What's a Hero podcast. It was recorded outside the What's a Hero podcast studios to accommodate our guest who had limited mobility. The audio may sound a little echoey, but hopefully the magic of modern-day editing has mitigated that somewhat. This episode is a multi-part episode, meaning the next several episodes will be dedicated to this hero's story. It's a personal story and one that is very special to the What's a Hero podcast production staff.
What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast. Like I said before, I'm Ken Frownfelter. I kind of want to start today with a little story. Years and years ago, I met a girl, and we were kind of talking. We were doing all sorts of things that younger people do when they meet, especially guys and girls. But every time, as we get to know each other, every time I'd do something or whatever, she would say, that reminds me of my dad. Oh, my dad makes that same joke, or something along those lines that were kind of goofy, that were kind of a lot of the jokes or a lot of the, different ways or reasons that you do a certain thing. And, ultimately I got a chance to meet that person that she said, oh, that reminds me of my dad. And, I got to meet her dad. Her dad is he's a pretty good guy, as you get to know him. And, ultimately I married this girl. And when I asked her to marry me, she, was one of those things where this whole issue where the two of us were, kind of seeing each other fairly seriously. Her dad was kind of expecting the ask permission to marry my daughter sort of thing. And, he would just kind of come up and just kind of nudge that, like, you got a question to ask me? You got a question to ask me? And it was kind of funny, you kind of push that issue, but it wasn't aggressive. It wasn't mean. It wasn't anything terrible. But as you get to know this person, as I got to know him as a man, you start realizing that all these stories that she was telling me about him, you start seeing, oh, okay, I see that. I see a little picture of those little things that she was talking about, whether it was, the way that you wash a car or the way that you sweep a floor, or, all these different things that caused her to become who she was. So, with that, you get to meet the people who have an influence on the people that are in your life. And today, we actually have that man on our podcast today, where we are talking with a Ron Gutekunst. I said that correctly, right?
Yes, you did.
I didn't think I mess that up. If I did, there would be some question, because I've known you for quite a few years.
At least 12.
At a minimum.
Yes.
So we're gonna talk to Ron today, and you wonder, well, why is he on the What's a Hero podcast? What's this guy have to offer that makes him a hero? What makes him that person that we want to question what he's done to help make me better? And the reason that we're going to get into that is because the most unlikely person is that hero. We don't know who the hero is. We don't understand necessarily why they do what they do. And did they do great things where they changed the world? Maybe not. But every time you drop a pebble in a pond, where do those ripples go? A lot of times, the people that we talk to are those pebbles. And you might be one of those ripples that they affected. You might be that boat that is moved out of the way of the storm because the ripple, the wave that they caused, moved you. So today we are going to be talking with Ron Gutekunst. Now, from my understanding, you didn't grow up on the West Coast anywhere, correct?
You are correct. I grew up in Michigan.
All right. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about who young little Ronnie was. Where did little Ronnie come from? What did he do?
Well, little Ronnie came from a little village called Dixboro, which is just outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's probably about 200 people in the village. And growing up there, you had your neighborhood friends. I grew up with two other kids that we always played together. If there was time available, we would get together and play some kind of game, some kind of card game, baseball game, football game. It was really nice to be a kid during those times. I kind of feel sorry for the kids nowadays because they don't have that capability or the ability to have a bunch of kids together and play throughout the summer, throughout the winter, like we did back in the early 60s. Growing up, one of my memories is I was probably 7 years old, and we were playing football in the winter. And if you've ever been outside and played football in the winter, you kind of get cold because we were playing tackle football.
So just I don't want to cut you off, but winter in Michigan is not like the winter on the West Coast or down south.
You are correct. The temperature was probably 20 degrees, if that. It was a wind chill. Normally we'd play outside for 10, 15 minutes and then go back in the house or their house for a couple hours. But in this case, they had a burner barrel. And if you're not familiar with a burner barrel, it's a 55-gallon drum that has puncture holes in the side of it. So you can start a fire and the air can get into the barrel. And so on that occasion, we were out there playing football, and I got cold, and I leaned up against the burner barrel. I sat down and kind of pushed myself up against the burner barrel. Well, that was the biggest mistake. All of a sudden, my jacket caught on fire, and I took off running. I was not smart enough, I guess, to realize I needed to drop and roll. I just took off running. And my brother, who is 6 years older than me, saw me on fire, running like a little chicken. He came running. And again, he's 6 years older than me, so he was running fast. And he caught me and tackled me in the snow. And he buried me in the snow, rolled me on my back, put snow all over me. When we have snow back there, you could get a foot of snow overnight. And, as kids, we enjoyed it. It was really great. So he put put the jacket out that I had worn. And unfortunately, I had to go home and tell Mom and Dad. And my parents were loving. I thought for sure I'd get a spanking. Nowadays, you can't give a kid a spanking unless you want to be charged with child abuse. But in those days, they didn't abuse you. They just gave you lovingly spanks on the rear.
You got a loving spank? You got a loving correction of some type?
Well, yeah. They surprised me because I didn't get a spanking. I just got told that you need to watch what you're doing. You don't need to be leaning up against the burner barrel. You're old enough that you have to be aware of what's going on around you. And I did get to say thank you to my brother many times for saving me because I didn't burn, other than the jacket, I didn't burn my hair. I didn't get burned anywhere, because of his quick action. And of course, of my speed, the flames were blowing out the back as I was running. But he tackled me and put out the flames.
So I guess you played with your brother a lot then. He was always there?
He was there, not all that much. He was in a gang, not a gang, but the family that we hung out together with, there was Jerry and my brother and Dennis were in one kind of group because they were in that age bracket, like they were 6 years older than we were. And then Jim, Dean, and myself, we were all about the same age. Jim just recently had his birthday on November 16th. Dean's birthday is December 16th. So it's kind of like, ooh. So we call each other and just say hello and happy birthday and things like that. But
so you still have communication with these guys? And
yeah.
Still talk with them every once in a while. And I guess the internet makes it easier to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Especially since you're not in Michigan right now. They're still in Michigan?
No, Dean's in Texas. Jim is in, I believe, Kansas. So, many miles apart from each other, we still try and keep in contact with each other. It's fun.
Well, that's great. That's great. So as you're growing up and you're deciding what you're going to do with your life, your kids, obviously during the summertime, you guys were riding bikes around or doing whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever you guys were doing, playing in the creeks or the rivers or swimming and running through the woods, things like that.
You know my life.
No, I just assume because you said that you guys were outside all the time.
Yes.
And during the early 60s, this wasn't a time where you had the opportunity to stay inside and watch TV all day.
Yeah, you had that opportunity not because TV was not in the normal. Well, there was a living room and then there was the family room. TV was in the living room and you only went in there if you were invited or if mom and dad said you could come in there. And so the TV was always in the living room. It was nice, couch. The kids don't go in that room unless you're going through it.
Right. So, and how old were you when your coat caught on fire, you think?
I believe I was about 7, 8 years old at that time.
Okay. So, you that's still your formative years. I mean, obviously, they say your brain doesn't stop forming and developing, all stuff like that, till you're 25 or whatever. But you start developing, watching your older brother, you start watching his friends, you start watching everybody else, and you're thinking, oh, they're in high school now, and that's the big time, high school. Yeah. They're driving a car now. Oh, that's big time. All this different stuff. But you start looking at, who you are, what you're going to do. What did you start doing? What were your interests at that time? What were the things you like to do? What were you looking at wanting to do with your life, and what were your interests?
Well, as I grew up, I kind of wanted to emulate my brother. He's had a major influence on my life. He became an Eagle Scout. Mm-hmm. About 6 years later, I became an Eagle Scout. In Boy Scouts, it's the highest rank that you can earn. You had to earn at least 21 merit badges. I believe it's 14 of them have to be required merit badges, and then the other 7 can be of your choice. So I made Eagle Scout, and I thought, wow, my brother made Eagle Scout. Well, that made my parents even prouder because there is very few people that have 2 boys that are Eagle Scouts.
Right.
There's a lot of kids that have 2 boys in Boy Scouts, mm-hmm. but not 2 Eagle Scouts.
Right. Yeah, I remember myself. I think I got to Life Scout. That's right before Eagle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were just...
They're just here, and then unfortunately we moved, and we moved to an area where there wasn't a troop. So it was one of those things where we didn't get the opportunity to kind of finalize that. So
wow.
And then age, because there's a certain age that you want to get that before.
I think you have to be an Eagle Scout before you're 17 or 18 years.
Right.
And I made it at 17.
Okay.
And my brother made it when he was 13. 14 years old.
And don't you have to have a project? You have a project?
Oh, yeah.
What was your project?
My project was landscaping at our church. It included railroad ties that we had to go get. I had to solicit people from the community to help go get the railroad ties, and then to haul in topsoil so we could spread it out. So next thing you know, they're sunk in their tires into the mud and they're having to get pulled out.
And so Sunday,
Yeah.
And so they're in their Sunday best, trying to.
You got the picture. So I did that, and then you had to go before a review board, and you had to talk about your project, and you had to give a little story about yourself and why you thought you deserved to be an Eagle Scout. And I would say that the people in the scouting of my troop and the committee, they were very good. I mean, they asked questions that were not thought-provoking, but were questions that, of that time, were relevant to what was going on. During the 60s, you had some riots going on in Detroit, which was about 60, 70 miles away from where I lived. They would ask questions, well, what do you think of this? And what would you do if you were the mayor? Or what would you think that we could do to stop it? They asked or probed to see if you were really thinking, were you worthy of doing what you did? This project, was it worthy of earning you the merit badge, or not the merit badge, but the Eagle Scout? I think I had probably 7 adult people that came and helped haul railroad ties. I had people that brought in truckloads of topsoil.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a good project, but it formed my life.
How long did that project take, you think?
The project took about 3 weeks to accomplish, but it took longer than that to program or plan it.
Right.
You had to have your plan of what you were going to do, how your attack was going to be on the project. They didn't time you. They just saw if what you thought you were going to do is what really actually happened. If I say, well, I think I can get this project done in 2 weeks, and it took 4 weeks, why could you, or what did you not see that caused you to
What was wrong with your plan that you didn't account for, or whatever?
Yeah, you hit it right there.
So take that big picture.
And I got lucky. I think I did it, or we accomplished it in 3 weeks. And I think I said that it would take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. So.
So when planning something, you give a window. Don't give a set timeline. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. 2 to 3 weeks, I should have this accomplished.
Right.
Well, it took 3 weeks, and so I was good at that, because you had to get the dirt drawn in, and then you had to take the time to get it all nice and level, and get grass seed.
Well, that's good. I mean, apparently this is something that was a big deal for you back then. This is something that kind of, you said it formed you.
Yeah.
Right.
It was part of my being, my passion.
The service portion, or the scouts portion, or the
both of them were part of my growing up, because planning it kind of helped me formulate in later life when I would go to do something, be it a project with the Air Force, or if it was at home, planning not down to the minute, but I would have an idea of this is how long it's going to take to do this, and trying.
I don't mean to cut you off again, but so were you like that before that? So up until this point, were you doing things like that, or was this kind of one of the things that kind of just planted that seed that said, I realize I need to be?
This planted the seed, because when I was a kid, well, before Boy Scouts, Eagle Scout, I just had a good time just running out, riding a bicycle, playing baseball during the summer months, hockey. Oh, I loved playing football because I was the biggest kid in our neighborhood. And so they would hand the ball off to me, and there goes Ron running. And all the kids would try and tackle me. And, I'm probably about 6 foot, and they're maybe 4 foot.
Right, back then.
Yeah.
Back then. And so, I mean, yeah, you're 6'3" now, right?
I'm 6'5".
6'5".
Yeah.
So when you're, a teenager, you're that tall kid, you probably hit your growth before they did.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was hard it was kind of fun, because in Michigan, you are allowed to go to school, but your birthday has to be before December 1st.
Uh-huh.
So I was born December 10th, and bingo, I did not get to go with the kids that I kind of grew up with. I grew up with probably about 3 sets of kids, but there was Danny DeWolf, there was 2 other, somebody, Jeremy Beard, something like that. They were the same age as I was,
Mm-hmm.
but again, they weren't as tall as I was. They were short people.
Right.
But they were all born before December 1st.
So they were in school, and you were grade behind them because of that, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
They got to start kindergarten. I'm going, well, I'm big enough. Well, it wasn't that. It was you had to be born a certain time period.
I see. That had to be frustrating, especially as you got older, and it was easier to understand, but it was still frustrating. You see all your friends graduating, or you see them doing their things, and
Yes.
you're a grade behind them.
Yes, it was kind of like I enjoyed it, but I don't want to be behind them. I want to graduate the same time they did.
Right. Right. So you go through school and you played ball in school. You played hockey. Did you play hockey in school?
Not at school.
No, just
at our community
okay.
Boy Scout hut. We had a nice skating rink.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Hoity-toity, huh?
yeah. It was about the same size as this building here.
Yeah.
And it had nice heat, benches so that you could walk in. They'd bring carpet in so that you didn't ruin your skates. And then when it was Boy Scout time, stuff got put away, and the Boy Scout used the same building. So
That's pretty cool. So did you play sports in school?
yes, I played football for 2 years, and then after that, I decided I didn't want to do it because I felt that there was people, or the coaches were more sympathetic to some of the other kids in the football program.
Well, they had their eye on other kids for whatever reason. They were more star athletes, or their parents paid more, or some
silly reason.
that nobody really can. It doesn't matter now, but
No.
when you look back on it, it's one of those things you wish you could call somebody out on, but there's no calling anybody out. That cancel culture thing wasn't a thing back in the 60s.
No, it wasn't.
So you go through school, you do sports, you all do all this different stuff. Come to the point where you start graduating high school. I mean, I'm assuming you had girlfriends and you had best friends, and everybody decides they're going to do something with their life. What did Ron choose to do with his life after school?
Well, Ron decided, like I said, my brother played a key part in my upbringing as a mentor. Look at what Don's doing. I can do that. Well, he started working as a printer machine operator. So in high school, they offered printing class. So I took that, and I finished high school, and the gentleman that I worked for part-time had offered me a full-time position to run a printing press. I thought, oh, Gary, I can be like my brother.
Right.
So that was January. February came and said, Ron, I can't hire you full-time. I'm thinking, oh gosh, what did I do wrong? He goes, well, Ron, my son's coming back from college, so I got to give him a job, but I can keep you on part-time.
But you're out of school. You need to make money, because you got to put yourself through whatever you got to pay your way.
Yeah, and I had planned on going to college, but
were you living with your mom and dad?
Yeah, at that time, during high school, I lived with mom and dad. So I went, and the recruiter came to the high school.
Recruiter? What do you mean recruiter?
Recruiter for the U.S. Marines, Air Force, Navy.
Oh, all of them.
Yeah, all branches.
So not just one recruiter.
Yeah.
You had all branches in there.
And they came in and said, we can offer you a job, this and that. Oh, we really want you. Well, I thought, that doesn't sound bad. I could go in and they'll offer an education, the GI Bill at that time. So I decided I'd try. And so I went to, I can't think of the name of where they test you.
For the ASVAB?
There you go, ASVAB.
Uh-huh. So for those that are listening that don't know what the ASVAB is, I would assume you might. However, it's the entrance, it's a test that the military gives you to see what your aptitude is for being able to do whatever kind of job. Some people can score to the point where they can do any job they want in the military. Some people score to the point where they're going to be really good at janitorial work in the military. It just depends on what you score and who you are, and there's not a you're such a failure that you can't get into this college, like some places, like your SATs or whatever. but it helps them figure out what jobs you would be good for. Then they give you a list of different jobs and then what you might like to do. Correct. And that's,
Yes.
Was yours MEPS? Was yours
MEPS?
MEPS. So they did it at MEPS there for you guys. I know for me, they did, they brought them, the recruiters came into the schools and you were able to take your test in the school. And then, you could have also taken them at the VA and, different places like that. So
correct. Like you were saying, they'd give you a list of jobs, like say you scored high on admin. Mm-hmm. They'd have different jobs that you could qualify for. Or you could just say, well, I just want to go into the general field of admin, not going in on a particular job. So admin, you might be a clerk, or you may be work finance, or you may work in a hospital, but they won't tell you what job you have till you get into the military. So unbeknown to myself, I said, well, I want to go in as a plumber because I did qualify for a plumber. Uh-huh. And the guy goes, well, I think you want to take the general field for mechanical. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go in as a plumber. And I had seen the videos of what the plumbing AFSC was. It showed you doing installation of water lines, sewer lines, gas lines, digging trenches, things like that. Of course, there was heavy equipment in there too, so that looked really good. Oh, golly, I get to operate the heavy equipment while we're digging trenches and things like that. That doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. You get the really dirty stuff. So yeah. They don't give you like the pants that drop down past your butt crack or anything like that, do they? Do they give you those?
We had pants like that.
Issued that, right?
Yeah, but we didn't wear them that way. Our pants were high and tight, and your shirt was tucked in, and you were stowed away, and everybody looked the same. You just didn't look like Wally the Beaver or whatever, walking down there with your pants hanging down.
Right. And what year was this? What year did you go? You
that was 75.
1975. You take the test to go into the Air Force.
Yes, I chose the Air Force.
What made the Air Force the coup de grace here?
I looked at the Army and I thought, no, I don't like the Army because I don't want to sling a rifle, and I just don't like the way that they do things. And, you have to check in and you have passes where you get to go home or go off base. I didn't like that idea. Uh-huh. Then I looked at the Navy. I can't get up and down the stairwells of the ships without banging my heads or my knees.
Because you're 6'5".
There you go. Being that tall doesn't have its good things. I looked at the Marine Corps, but they could never say, well, you won't go on ships.
Right. Yeah, I guess there's that portion where they're the Department of the Navy, so there's that opportunity for you to be floating in a boat at some point.
Yeah, and I didn't want to float in the boat because my knees don't like that. And so I said, that's fine. I'll go in the Air Force, because looking at it, it looked like you get done with work and you get off. If you want to go downtown, you go downtown. You didn't have to have a pass.
So it was like a job.
Yeah, it was like normal living. So I thought, well, that's the way I want to go. Uh-huh. So I went through that. Unfortunately, I had to tell my parents that I was going into the Air Force in September. And they kind of like, what? And I go, well, I joined the Air Force and I'm going to be a plumber. And there was a few choice words, nothing negative. It was like, are you kidding? You have a hard enough time making your bed and going to school. But Mom, look at all the time I can get up. And I was working endless hours. I'd get up and go to work at the gas station. That was about 9 in the morning. Then at noon, I would get off and have to go all the way across the city of Ann Arbor and work at a printing press. Then I'd drive all the way back. Well, that would be about 5 o'clock that we'd finish, work from 1 to 5. Yeah. And then from 5, go all the way back across town, get something at home to eat, drive about 5 miles away, pick up a guy, Roy, and we would go work on voting machines. I know you don't want to hear about voting machines.
Voting machines, yeah, especially since it's right now, we're recording this, it's late November of 2020, right after the most contentious election we've had in years.
Yeah, and the voting machines were at the center of many discussions especially in the state of Michigan.
Especially back in 1970.
Oh, back then they were pretty good. You couldn't cheat on the machine.
Uh-huh.
Well,
and so is this pre-Air Force or is this in the Air Force?
This is pre-Air Force.
Okay.
So I'm working probably anywhere from 8 to 10 hours, but I was out there for 13 or 14 hours, driving back and forth, getting something to eat, whatever. But I enjoyed it, but there was no money to be made.
Right.
And
right. There's no longevity. There's no long term with this. You can do that, but then what happens when it's not election season, or what happens when something else comes up and you want to buy a house, or you want to buy a car, or you want to do something. Yeah.
You are correct, because my mom said, well, if you wanted to go to college, we could pay for you to go to college. And I said, Mom, Dad, I appreciate the money that you would promise to help me with, but the problem is my other siblings. Did you guys help them with their education? Did you help pay them to go through college? And the answer was no, we didn't. I said, well, there you go. I don't want to take your money because I don't want them to think, well, the little baby of the family gets all the money.
Right.
He gets the Pampers.
Is it that I guess that thought process, that what makes me so special?
Yeah.
Why would I be special?
Yeah. Why do I get all the good stuff? And
right. They had to work their butts off to get where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said no, but I joined the Air Force, and I was stationed in Las Vegas.
Oh, bummer.
It was a tough duty.
Yeah, especially going from Michigan, where it can get 40 below or something, huh?
This is in September. I went through boot camp in Texas. I went home on leave for a week back to Michigan, and it started getting cold, and it was like 30 degrees out there. The normal daytime average was 30 degrees. It got a little cooler at night. So when I got on the airplane to fly to Las Vegas, here I am wearing this Air Force issued parka and all nice dressed. At the time, it was tan uniforms.
Oh, okay.
And you had 2 sets of those, and then you had 1 set blues. They were just blue, shirt and pants. And they were phasing out the tan uniform. So that means I got to buy blue uniforms. Now I have to buy a blue jacket and all the things that you need to be in regulations.
Right.
Because they are strict on that kind of stuff. So I went ahead and got on the airplane, flew to Las Vegas. And at that time, they didn't have these enclosed stairways that you would get down or go off the airplane.
The tunnels or whatever, you go from the waiting area at the airport onto the plane. It was actually stepping out of the airplane.
You stepped out of the airplane and had to go down the ramp there. It was like 85 degrees. And here I am all bundled up in this stuff, and it's like, oh my God.
You go from 30 degrees to 85 in 2 hours.
And I get there, and the guy that's supposed to meet me, Tech Sergeant Barnes, he was supposed to meet me because he knew I was coming, and he knew the flight number and the time that the plane arrived. Well, he never showed up. So I got a taxi, and I believe it cost $22 to go from the airport to the Air Force Base.
So that's Nellis Air Force Base, right?
Correct.
Was it still McCarran Airport at that point?
Yes, it was
still that one.
Yeah.
And then you go all the way. So McCarran is kind of on the more southern end of Las Vegas, central southern, and then Nellis is way on the north end of the valley.
Yes. So it was
the northeast end.
It was like $22. I'm going, my gosh, who's going to pay for that? Well, I did. So it was fun. Then my first thought process was, I'm standing out the door of the barracks, and in the Army, you look at their photographs, the barracks are like 16 to 20 people in a building, and you're all pretty much doing the same job. All the plumbers or whatever, infantrymen would be in one area.
Right.
I had a roommate, and the guy was a firefighter. So that's kind of neat because he was only there every other day.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
You get your room to yourself for...
Yeah. Instead of 20 people, there's 2 of us. Ooh, this is a life for me.
Right.
And then I looked out, or I stood out on the, can't think of the right word, out on the
parade deck?
No. What do we have on the side of the house?
The deck?
Yeah. Well, the cement deck out there. I'm standing there looking out there, and I'm going, there's no trees. There was not one tree to be seen.
Yeah, you're in the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it finally dawned on me that oh my gosh, I'm in the desert out here and there's no trees. I don't see much of anything around here. I did see some houses off in the distance.
Right.
And so that was kind of fun. I spent many hours out there because they had a gas leak. The city turned off the gas to the trailer park. There was an Air Force trailer park there. Mm-hmm. So if you had a trailer, like a double wide type trailer or bigger, you could park your trailer there on the Air Force Base and you'd pay rent for the use of the property. So the city turned off the gas because they calculated how much gas was being used and thought you're using way too much gas, so you have a gas leak, and we had to fix it. Well, we had to dig the gas lines up, replace them. There was like 40 trailers in the trailer park. Mm-hmm. So we had to run all new lines to all 40 trailers, had to put caps on the end and then fill it with air and hold the air pressure. I think it was like 70 pounds at the time. And it had to be held for 24 hours. So the city came out and looked at it and saw, okay, you're holding it at 70. We'll come back tomorrow and take a look. Apparently we did good because they turned the gas back on.
And you're like a 18, 19-year-old kid when you did this, right?
Yeah. So that was a big project, hands-on. We didn't quit just because it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We quit when we couldn't see any more out there.
Right. And they didn't necessarily do floodlights back then. I guess they could have, but
yeah,
they didn't necessarily do that. So
yeah. No, it was pretty much a lot of hours.
Dusk till dawn sort of thing, huh?
Yeah. And I think it took us a week.
Till dusk.
It was about a week worth of at least 16 people.
So all those people that lived in those trailers, nothing. They had no
gas.
They had no gas. And they were using that for cooking.
Cooking and hot water.
And heat, I guess. But since you're in the desert and it's 85, and it didn't get too cold, so that kind of made it a little bit more bearable, I suppose.
But the hot water or the water was probably the biggest killjoy because they didn't have hot water to take a shower.
Right.
Taking a cold shower, I guess, wouldn't be bad, but trying to tell a 10-year-old kid you need to take an ice cold shower was not something many parents would do.
Right.
But I guess they could let them out and play in the pools. Here, go to the pool and take a shower.
So you do that. You do plumbing jobs. You do piping jobs. You're doing all sorts of stuff that's, I guess, more or less support for units that are there. And if I'm not, Nellis is an air wing base, right? They have a fighter jet base, or is that?
Oh, it was a training base.
So back then it was a training base.
Yeah.
I guess it could still be. I don't know, to be honest with you, what they're doing now with it. But back then a training base. So you have all these guys coming through to train, doing whatever.
Fighter trainers.
And if they're not, and so you guys were a support division of those.
Correct.
Of those fighters.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, you had the Air Force Blue Angels, Red Angels.
Blue Angels.
Blue Angels.
What's the Navy one is the
Thunderbirds. We had the third Thunderbirds.
So the Navy
had the Blue Angels.
Okay, that's what it is.
Yeah, we had the Thunderbirds.
Yeah. And the Thunderbirds, are they better?
Better than what?
The Blue Angels.
Of course.
Oh, okay. I just you want to make sure that.
Yeah.
Your words.
Yeah. Air Force Blue Angels, Air Thunderbirds were much better than the Blue Angels.
So you're there. I heard somewhere at some point that for every troop that is on the front line, it takes 10 support units to make sure that they're able to do their job. So whether it's cooks, whether it's admin, whether it's, whatever the case may be, it takes 10 of those guys so that one guy can go up front
and fly
and fly or shoot his gun or do whatever he needs to do. So you're saying that, you're a plumber or you're a support person, whatever, shouldn't be undercut, because without a support person, those front line guys couldn't be doing their job.
Correct. You have the folks that work on the airplanes.
Right, mechanics and whatnot.
Yes, they're your support group.
Right.
The pilots can only fly so many hours a day, and they have to have rest. They have to have creature comfort facilities. That's where civil engineering did their support. We set up camps for the folks to come in and rest, which included air conditioning, heat. There was water. There was plumbing, bathroom facilities, showers. There was cooks. There was, like you said, admin people. Mm-hmm. doing the paperwork, so this guy would get paid, so his family would have some money.
Yeah.
There was the security force people, which guarded the airplanes around the airfield as well as around the
front gates and whatnot.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of fun to watch or be with them one time or a couple times. I had an assignment to Kuwait, and I thought, well, the security force people, they kind of hang together as a group, which is good, but they also said, well, if you want to see what our life is like, come be in, we'll take you on a tour. So I went with them, and we went to one of their bunkers where they had an M60, I believe it was, and how it was set up, their kill field, what they were watching, the sensors that were outside their construction building,
right?
Concrete, like 4 or 5 feet thick with a partial window in there, but they had sensors all the way around, and we watched a coyote. And again, this is Kuwait. There's not many trees. It's pretty much sand. It's middle of the night, so we're watching this coyote, and it went through the vehicle entrapment. It was the vehicle entrapment is where they dig a hole longer than the truck or the vehicle is. So, example, pickup truck is about 15 feet.
Okay.
So the trench that was dug all the way around the entire camp was at least 16 to 17 feet wide. So if somebody wanted to try and drive through, the vehicle would get stuck in the entrapment area.
Okay.
And then after that, they had barbed wire, concertina wire, that was about 2-3 feet thick, laid out in such ways that it was very hard to get through there, but the coyote did. So then the next thing was another vehicle entrapment area. Again, it's all censored. So here comes that coyote up through there.
Right.
And then the last thing is another set of concertina wire. And then a space probably 25, 30 feet between the concertina wire and the bunker.
Oh, okay.
So they had a killing field.
So if you made it through all those those things, you were most likely not going to make it through the killing field.
One would hope so.
You would, at least by theory.
Yeah.
Sure.
But it was kind of fun. Well, it was fun being in their shoes for that period of time, because you'd sit down and you start to relax a little bit, and then something would go off, or their radio would go off saying, hey, we have a suspicious vehicle at the gate. And when they had that was given out, there was about 3 or 4 gun sights that would be pointing at the front gate. So in case this person is not who they say they are, but somebody else, and they got past the gates, they were met with some lead poisoning.
Lead poisoning?
Yeah.
Yeah. And not from like a tip of a pencil, but no.
No.
So they would absolutely kill this person if you were coming up there, because they assumed that it would be a hostile act by an enemy or whatever. Huh?
Yes. Because you have areas where you have to stop and identify yourself, and if you decide that you're not going to try or stop and identify yourself, I'm going to run the gate, they would give you some lead treatment.
Okay.
M60.
Yeah. So going back to, I guess, Las Vegas, you're there.
This has been the What's a Hero podcast. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter. Join us in episode 6, where we will continue our conversation with Ron and get to know a little bit more about him. You can always find us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and the ever-famous Facebook. We are at what's a hero podcast.buzzsprout.com. So until then, keep writing your story.